Saint-Rémy-de-Provence is a fine example of a charming rural French village with a special character of its own. Definitely worth visiting. The village is located about 12 miles or 20 kilometers south of Avignon in the heart of Provence. It's a good destination anytime, but extra special on a Wednesday morning with the outdoor food and flea markets going strong, as we'll show you soon coming up in the program. Provence in the south of France is famous for its outdoor markets, and you'll find the market at Saint-Remy is one of the best. But just simply walking the pedestrian lanes of this small town any day of the week is probably the most interesting thing you could do here, and we are going to show you all the places to see. The village center is small enough that you can just walk any place you like. It doesn't take long and you won't get lost, but this map route gives you some idea of a sequence of lanes you can easily walk through the little town. That would only take you about 1 hour altogether to cover the entire village, but of course you'll want to linger, do some shopping, take some pictures, and look around. Saint-Remy's old town used to be surrounded by a circular protective wall, which has been replaced by modern busy streets. But the effect of a sheltered refuge remains, with many structures inside going back to the 15th and 16th centuries. Several old gates in the original wall remain standing, a vestige of the Middle Ages, and they still lead you into the village. Entering from any angle will bring you to the center in a few minutes, but perhaps the front door is the town's main street, Rue Carnot, on the left side of the big church of Saint-Martin. This impressive neoclassical church is quite large for such a small town. Rue Carnot leads into the small shopping district with several pedestrian lanes, no cars allowed here, that forms a little retail downtown. Continue walking a couple of blocks east along Rue Carnot and you'll reach several more shopping lanes. One can easily wander up and down for an hour or two in this heart of Saint-Remy, with lovely shops and a quiet pedestrian atmosphere, featuring dozens of stores in surprising variety for such a small village center. Indeed, you'll find that wandering along on these pedestrian lanes is the number one activity of any visit to Saint-Remy. Except for you shoppers, it might take you a couple days to get through town. You'll find several other little quaint pedestrian lanes here, all converging in the vicinity of the little place Joseph Hilaire. Rue Lafayette has more shops, and narrow Rue de la Commune is especially nice, extending 100 meters from here with a lineup of traditional shop fronts, ending back at that picturesque arched gateway of St. Pauline, a remnant of the old encircling wall. Passing through this gate is another typical way that many people enter the old town, because there is parking in this area, and it leads into that lovely street of Rue de la Commune, a lane that has been recently renovated with new paving to make it delightfully attractive, which has rejuvenated this lane as a prime shopping location. This video was photographed during 3 different visits to Saint-Remy over the last decade, and if you look carefully at the streets, you'll see some changes with these renovations of the new paving that's gone in. It's been a major upgrade to the town and really makes it a more pleasant place to stroll around. While Saint-Remy may not have any spectacular monuments or ruins in town, it has got a special charm of its own, nicely enhanced by the new paving and renovated shop fronts, which still retain their historic character. It's the archetypal Provençal village. At the end of a 2-week journey through the south of France, we look back on these brief hours in Saint-Remy as some of the most enjoyable of the whole trip. There are some poster boards about Van Gogh in the town and scattered around the outskirts that clue you into where he made some of his paintings. Another favorite art form here is pottery. A lot of handmade pottery, and the yellow and green are the theme colors of Provence in the fabrics as well as in the ceramics. A little hard to bring home, but you might get a small piece and pack it carefully. Pottery and ceramic sculptures are very popular in the region, and this little gallery was typical in that the owner's mother was the main potter. You'll find the artist craftsmen very often running their own shops here. The town itself relies on tourism primarily nowadays, so you'll find wonderful little shops with artistic goods, little squares, beautifully maintained, of course. Everything here is very clean, and yet it's not modern. It's in the old style. Of course, the French love their dogs, and they bring them everywhere, into restaurants and food stores and out for a walk. It's always amusing to watch the interactions between a little dog and a big dog. Here's a friendly face-off. No barking, probably a couple friends who know each other, and then a sprint to safety, along with the mistress heading back home. The most famous person associated with Saint-Remy is Vincent van Gogh, who lived nearby in the hospital for about a year, during which he created over 150 paintings, including some of his most famous, like Starry Night. He only created one painting in the village, and that was of the boulevard that still runs around, and you can see those same trees today. At the end of the program, we'll drive out and have a quick look at the hospital he stayed at. Getting to Saint-Remy without a car can be a challenge because there's no train station nearby. You take the bus, public bus from Avignon, or you can take a public bus from Arles. From Avignon, for example, go on bus number 54, and that'll take you about 1 hour to get to Saint-Remy. And the bus service is not very frequent. It's every hour or sometimes every 2 hours during the middle of the day. A good option if you're staying in Avignon or Arles without a car is to buy into a day tour that'll go visit some other nearby places such as Pont du Gard and Nîmes. Don't expect to run into a lot of street musicians in this little town, but occasionally you might get lucky and walk along with an impromptu sidewalk jam. The town does have one famous person who was born and grew up here, and that is Nostradamus, born in 1503. He was famous as a man who could supposedly foretell the future. Wrote a book called The Prophecies, which were actually vague poetic ramblings that really predicted nothing. But he's famous, and he was great for other reasons, and so he's commemorated here in town with a statue and a fountain on Rue Nostradamus at the corner of Rue Carnot. Nostradamus was a brilliant doctor who was ahead of his times in trying to encourage hygiene as a way of controlling disease. The plague was running rampant in France at the time, burning rat-infested rags and sterilizing graves of the victims, feeding patients garlic, vitamin C, and aloe, all of which had antibacterial properties, and generally maintaining clean hygiene as a way of controlling the disease. Later, he went on to become the physician to Catherine de' Medici and King Henry. Continuing to another highlight of this neighborhood, Place Favier is a picturesque square in the center, surrounded by ancient ivy-covered buildings, some going back to the 14th and 15th centuries. The entire village has charm, but this particular square is special, with a small castle tower rising above and old stone walls all around with a fountain monument at the end. This peaceful little park is a good place to listen to the Tourist Information Office description, which says, "In this village in the heart of Provence, you'll find all the charm of a typically Provençal way of life. You'll be strolling along under the shade of century-old plane trees, wandering around the narrow little streets, discovering squares where fountains play, and the attractive boutiques and art galleries that make the town's historic center so lively." Adjacent to Place Favier, through a cobbled alley spanned by an ancient arch, is the Hôtel de Sade, still owned by the family of the Marquis de Sade, who had ancestral connections with this town. The medieval atmosphere of the lane is complemented by the small Musée des Alpilles in a former Renaissance mansion, whose original inner stone courtyard is encircled by galleries featuring archaeology, ethnology, graphics, and photography. Some of the historic artifacts in the museum are ancient Roman remains that were excavated from Glanum, the historic site that's outside of town we'll be showing you later in the program. This little courtyard is easy to find if you know where to look. It's just behind Place Favier, and you could easily overlook it, but it's got a certain historic charm that's different from any of the other buildings in town, so it's worthwhile. From there you can walk a little bit into the residential district, but more interesting for you to stick with Rue Carnot and the shopping area. You don't really need to walk along Rue du Page, just north of Place Favier, unless you have time for a stroll in a simple residential neighborhood on this end of the village. There are no shops or historic sites for visitors back there, just a residential zone, a local place for people who are living and working in the town. Sometimes it's refreshing to get off the beaten track, especially if it's a busy market day and there's lots of people on the main pedestrian lanes, and just take a breather and head into the real part of town, the residential area. Better to get back over on Rue Carnot with its many shops and lively pedestrian atmosphere. The wine stores are outstanding here, of course, in the heart of France, offering local and regional specialties. We were lucky to be here on a Wednesday morning, which is market day. It only happens once a week. Provence is famous for its outdoor markets, with hundreds of them taking place on a regular basis. And many travelers look at the schedule and plan their trips accordingly so they can visit one of the markets. And this one at Saint-Remy is one of the most popular, with such a delightful setting. It's a good idea to arrive at this market early because it's very popular. It's a huge market and it gets quite busy. It does open at 7 a.m., so if you can get here by then or 8 o'clock in the morning, that would be good. Especially if you're driving a car and need a place to park it, you really want to get here early. Otherwise, you'll have to walk quite a while from the parking space you find to the market. Naturally, there's a huge variety of kinds of olives here, and you can get tapenade as well, the crushed olives. Olives are grown all throughout the Provence region, so it's really one of the major agricultural crops, carrying on a tradition that's thousands of years old. You'll also find excellent olive oils, but that might be kind of a heavy thing to pack if you're traveling. Just buy some olives and you can eat them on the spot, have them for a picnic that day. There is a much smaller market on Saturday mornings, and there they're just selling food. So if you're around on a Saturday, that might be fun as well. And it's a lot less crowded, so that's a nice advantage. You'll be happy to find that tourists are not the only ones out here shopping. The locals come out every Wednesday morning to buy their fresh produce. So this might be a chance for you to strike up a conversation with some local people, maybe ask for their opinion on what to buy. And it's basically divided in two general areas, one for food in the main lanes of the village, the other in front of the church for clothing and antiques and knickknacks and junk. The many different aspects of this one market are really quite remarkable. It's almost like you're at an outdoor shopping mall. There's a diverse collection. Some items brand new, while others are very old. You'll find some antiques. You'll find some cutting-edge modern design. Tools and hardware, handmade works of art, clothing, textiles, furniture. It's going to be a fun experience, and you'll find that the merchants are not pushy at all. In fact, they're really quite friendly. So this is a chance to talk with some locals, talk with some merchants, and maybe buy something. You can certainly try and talk them down over in the flea market side. People always seem to be in a loose and sociable, open mood when they're walking around in the market. Fancy scarves and printed cotton fabrics in the Provençal colors and patterns are some of the most popular items you might purchase here. It's a lot easier to carry than pottery, and it makes an excellent gift. You'll find this colorful fabric is crafted for you into some useful items like little purses and carrying bags, sometimes potpourri wrapped around the fragrant flower blossoms. This entire region grows countless flowers for the perfume industry, and there's even a small museum of aroma nearby. By noon, the market is winding down, and by 1 p.m., they're finished, so don't get here too late. Of course, the shops in the village are going to stay open all afternoon, and you'll find more opportunities to spend your money or just browse with some window shopping. You're not likely to find any street food ready to eat at this market. They're really not selling sandwiches and bowls of soup and that sort of a takeaway food thing. But you can surely get supplies that you'll put together later for a lovely picnic. Especially delicious, that wide variety of French cheeses. Or if you just want to eat in a cafe, there are many of those all around the market area. If you're hungry for some great food, try and pick one of the 10 different gourmet restaurants listed on the tourist information website for Saint-Remy, and dozens of other affordable places to eat with a variety of cuisines. You've got Italian, Spanish, Moroccan, sushi bar, and of course many French picks. You'll never go hungry in this town. As we were wrapping up our visit to Saint-Remy, we noticed something a bit unusual. There's a singer out in the middle of the street. She's there on the main traffic island with cars and trucks driving around on all sides of her. We'll show you a little bit more of her music at the end of the program. While the pedestrian zone of the old town is certainly going to be the main place you'll be spending time, don't forget about this lovely boulevard that runs around the old town, following the route of what had been the medieval wall. There's a whole stretch of restaurants and shops here that you would find quite interesting, especially on the south along Boulevard Victor Hugo. You could walk along the boulevard on one side of the street and then cross over and walk back on the other side. And there are several places where there's connecting lanes that will bring you right back into the old section. That covers our visit to Saint-Remy, and now we're going to take you out of town to a couple of nearby historic landmarks. First, let's go see the hospital where Van Gogh spent the final year of his life, just on the outskirts of Saint-Remy.
He was here from May 1889 until July 1890.
Wow. Driving past the same olive groves that inspired Van Gogh to create some of his most famous paintings, he worked very fast to catch the fleeting light. Van Gogh checked himself into this asylum hospital of St. Paul in May of 1889, and he fell in love with the area's natural beauty that inspired him to create 150 of his best paintings in his final year, ranking among the most prolific artistic outputs in history. The hospital is now a museum, and they've created a picturesque walk with reproductions of many of Van Gogh's paintings on the original sites where he created them. Van Gogh was initially confined to the asylum grounds, but eventually was able to walk out into the countryside where he set up his easel and created some of his greatest works. It's a sad irony, he only sold one painting during his lifetime, and the town of Saint-Remy never thought to purchase any of his work, so there are no original paintings by Van Gogh in the area. You can take this free walk along the self-guided trail of 3 kilometers with a brochure from the Tourist Information Office, viewing an array of 21 reproductions of the artist's paintings at the locations where he created them. Images we're showing here are not necessarily on that walking trail. These are from the Google Art project of Van Gogh's work in Saint-Remy. The trail near the asylum seems to be the most rewarding, but some travelers feel the section near town not worth doing because the landscape has become more urbanized and the posters faded. Yet overall satisfaction with this walk on TripAdvisor is 4 stars, with 80% rating the walk as either excellent or very good. Quite nearby, you'll find Saint-Remy's other notable historic attraction, the ruins of an ancient Roman city called Glanum. Glanum first began as a fortified settlement founded in the 6th century BC by the Celto-Ligurian. The tall monument is a well-preserved ancient mausoleum standing next to a Roman triumphal arch. There's no charge to see these two impressive structures, but if you want to see a lot more, you do pay a small fee. The excavated ruins have been preserved in a national park. These original people were in early contact with the Greek colony in Marseille, and they merged into that spreading Greek culture. However, by the 2nd century BC, the Greeks were being raided by aggressive neighboring tribes, and so they called upon the assistance of their friends in Rome, who marched over and took control. The Romans developed a thriving community that lasted 400 years, so most of the ruins uncovered today are from that extended Roman occupation. In the 1st century BC, the Romans built a new forum, stone roads, temples, and other public buildings clad in marble, including an aqueduct that supplied water for the town's fountains and public baths, and that curved triumphal stone arch. However, Glanum did not survive the collapse of the Roman Empire. The town was overrun and destroyed by the Alemanni in 260 AD and subsequently abandoned, its inhabitants moving a short distance north into the plain to found a city that eventually became Saint-Remy. After that abandonment, Glanum became a source of stone and other building materials for Saint-Remy, with the ruins eventually covered by dirt and mud blowing and flooding in. It was rediscovered in the 1920s when the first archaeology work began, which has continued to this day, restoring the site and welcoming visitors. We complete our tour to Saint-Remy and Glanum by rejoining our guides in the van, who are having some more fun.
Is very good. Over the one here is brother Theo. Hey, Marc, on va à l'office.
Let's finish up the program with a few more images of beautiful Saint-Remy and music from our singer in the street. We have many more movies about Provence and the south of France in our collection. Be sure to look for them.
Accordé, 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 do, 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 à l'accorde, l'accordéon, ouais. Quand parfois il lui massacre ses petits boutons de nacre, il empoche à son veston pour l'accordéon, lui emprunte ses bretelles pour secourir la ficelle. Tiens, voilà le soleil qui vient avec nous. Accordé, 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 do, do, à l'accorde, l'accordéon, ouais. Mais un jour, par lassitude, il verra la solitude se pointer à l'horizon de l'accordéon. Il en tirera 50 sentiments à brocanter. On fera attention à l'accordéon. Accordé, 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 do, do, à l'accorde. Les ennuis, les chagrins s'effacent, heureuse, heureuse à en mourir. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, qu'il me parle tout bas, je vois Saint-Rémy en rose. Il m'a dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est toi pour moi pour toi dans la vie. Tu me l'as dit, l'as géré pour la vie.
We have many more movies about Provence and the south of France in our collection. Be sure to look for them.